Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, and we have the patch notes now for the big October patch for Guilty Gear Strive, and my friends, this one is a doozy. There is a lot going on in this patch and a lot going on for the entire roster, and for the most part it is indeed mostly buffs. There is a few nerfs, yes, but it is mostly buffs. So what I'm going to be doing in this video, naturally there'll be timestamps so you can skip around to anything you want. I will post the character specific patch notes at the start of every character section. Also, I'll post a link to the full patch notes in the video description. And before anything else, really, we got to talk some universal changes, because some of the biggest changes happening in the game has nothing to do with the individual characters, although it does affect the characters, but changes to the general game system. So let's start with that. So let's look at some of these universal changes. They have stated here their intentions as well, which I actually am a big fan of. More than just, hey, here's the change, here's our idea behind the changes. So universal mechanics overall changes. We have revised the overall functions of projectile special moves, aerial attacks, and anti-airs. Some projectile special moves now have less recovery, making them easier to use in neutral, in accordance with this buff to projectiles. We have also increased the benefit gain from landing aerial attacks. We'll look at that in a second here. Many characters can now deal more damage than before on counter hit. By increasing the number of moves that can be cancelled into air dashes, it is now easier to launch an offensive after the opponent blocks your aerial attack. Anti-air attacks have also been buffed, in particular by increasing the reward gain from counter hit, forward, and P. 6P, just forward and punch, and making it easier to include special moves. It was our intent to remove the disparity between characters when it came to their options after forward punch. And real quick, just to interrupt, it basically means everyone universally can special cancel their 6P. Before, some characters could not, now everyone can. This should lead to some pretty good stuff. We have revised the startup of the fastest normal moves. Characters whose fastest moves had more startup than others now have a faster startup on their punch attacks, for example. Although it varies, this generally makes it so characters can counter throws on wake up as a general rule. Keep in mind, waking up, the throw protection is you cannot be thrown 5 frames after waking up. So if someone were to throw you and then try to throw you again, if you do it right away, you'll whiff, right? So they have to wait a split second. However, for characters who had slower fast buttons, as it were, they could still wait that split second and in a lot of cases still win with their throw, because even though they waited past that brief window of throw invincibility, your normals are so slow that you just get beat out by the throw anyway. So that should be better across the board for the rest of the cast. The input buffer. By increasing the time window for input buffering, it has become easier to act on the earliest possible frame from when you hit a button. We have previously chosen to keep this time window limited, as making inputs at the correct time is a technique in and of itself. However, we have increased the time window to account for play under different circumstances such as online matches. Now, realistically, your buffer, it doesn't matter when you're just doing this, that, and the other while you're playing around. It's mostly an issue for the reversal window, and it sounds like the reversal window, the window for you to wake up, do an uppercut or an invincible move, super whatever, that seems like it should be easier to work with now. Startup for mix-up moves. We think of overheads in this game as falling into 2 categories. Overheads that are difficult to react to, for example, standard dust attacks. That's just doing dust without holding the button. For the most part, they're on the edge of human reactability, to be honest. And overheads that are easily reacted to unless taken by surprise, such as a charged dust attack, where you hold the move. Just so you know, an uncharged dust attack is 20 frames startup, so that's a third of a second, which is pretty tight to react to. And a charged dust attack is 28 frames, so about half a second roughly. And that's pretty decent amount of time to help, tell which one's going to be which, right? Harder to react to the quick one, a little bit easy, although not necessarily free to react to the slower one. For throws, we have extended the time window for throw clashes, which previously only worked when input at almost the exact same time as the opponent throw. So they're talking about just teching throws. The tech window is now bigger than it was before, as there were times when a clash would not occur even when the player successfully predicted the opponent's throw, and Lord knows that's many accounts for me. Very rarely have I screamed, I tech that more than in this game. This change makes it easier to counter throws with your own. It is now possible to Roman cancel at any point during the animation of throws, excluding overdrive, so no Heavenly Potemkin Bust or something like that. So like a basic throw, most throws have like a predetermined point, only at that predetermined point can you Roman cancel through it. So now you could, like, going by this wording, Roman cancel on frame 1. So if you mash Roman cancel after a throw, I would say actually watch out after that, because it might bite you in the butt. And finally here, base damage scaling of special moves. Although this varies between characters, we have increased base damage scaling on strong offensive special moves and combo starter moves. So increasing the base scaling basically means your overall combo will do a little bit less damage. It remains to be seen the full extent of this, but that's how it's worded. Now, just for the proper notes themselves here. So input buffer, increase time window for input buffering, simple enough. Throws, all types, increase the window for throw clashes, that's text. No longer causes a throw clash if the player is pressing a button other than D. So if you're mashing and you hit something other than D, you're not able to tech. A Roman cancel can now be performed after a successful throw, even during the animation. And altered the damage distribution between red Roman cancels activations on some throw moves. Total damage is unaffected. Air throws, a successful throw no longer increases the wall break value. As you do more damage in this game, the more and more the wall is susceptible to break. Air throws will no longer add to that value. Counter, we have a bug fix. It says increase the length of slowdown time caused when a counter hit lands during slowdown. So perhaps that means if I catch you in like a blue Roman cancel and then hit a counter hit, something like that. And adjusted the visual counter hit effect. Roman cancels says remove the slowdown adjustment caused by red and purple Roman cancels. So the way that makes it sound is like there's no more time stop for purple Roman cancels or red Roman cancels. Like maybe it's only going to be on blue Roman cancels now. If true, that's kind of a big deal. It is now possible to Roman cancel during a jump activation. For overdrives, your super moves. Overdrives no longer negate slowdown on activation. So I guess that means like the time stop effect. Activating a Roman cancel during an overdrive now causes slowdown. So some characters, they can RC their supers. I guess that will always cause a time stop effect now. And some bug fixes. Your homing jump, and by homing they mean homing after a charge dust, not like Super Dash and Dragon Ball, right? It's no longer possible to activate Roman cancels during the dust attack follow-up. So perhaps they mean while going up, because there's definitely been some weird, crazy combos with that, so maybe that's what they mean. Once again, without the patch in our hands, just reading the notes, some things can be a little subject to interpretation. Psych Burst expanded the hitbox. Now we actually have a companion video for this. So currently as it stands, you know, the hitbox for Burst is not necessarily the best, right? You definitely have to be pretty beside the enemy. But now the hitbox goes further than it did before, so you're a little more reliable on just doing your burst, and good enough, I suppose. Clash projectiles. When two projectiles clash, the projectile with the lower clash level, like projectile durability if you've ever played Marvel or something like that, right? The projectile with the lower clash level will now be erased. So this is basically a buff to characters with stronger projectiles, because sometimes things would just be weird. Like you think you would win the projectile war and you would still get hit at the end of the move, even though you should have won, right? So the way this is worded is it'll just delete the projectile on hit, and these weird situations where you get hit anyways, even though your heavier projectile should have won, like that just reads as basically a bug fix, but a quality of life for the people who actually want to use projectiles. So jump S, jump HS, and jump D, all these moves together can now all trigger the counter effect. And what I mean by that is this. So normally, if you get a counter hit, like say counter hit stand heavy slash, right? Boom, counter, right? But if you do it from the air, like you don't get that. Like it'll say counter, right? But not necessarily to the same effect. So jump slash, jump heavy slash, jump dust, now get the big boy counter animations. Like you still get a benefit from counter hitting in the air, but now the benefit is much larger, and it will allow for new combo routes. Jumping S and jumping HS across the board can now be jump canceled and air dash canceled. So if your character hit with any combo, jump S, jump HS, you can now air dash that and keep going. Some people could do this already, yes, but now this is universal across the cast. And finally, more Gatling. So jump S, jump HS can both Gatling into air dust. So blocking, here's a pretty big one. Remove the increase to block stun when you did a successful faultless defense. You are actually in more block stun when you faultless defense than a normal block. So that is now normalized. Regular block and faultless defense both work the exact same way. Successful faultless defense now causes a set amount of knockback. Now we have a video for this as well. So basically, regardless of what the character would be moved back before, there's now a minimum distance they'll go. So sometimes you barely move the enemy backwards at all, right? Now, they can move back a fair bit. So for Potemkin, Garuda Impact example, you know, that's a lot further back than it used to be. Even when the knockback is overwritten by a projectile, so like you hit and then your projectile hits behind you, the set amount of knockback will remain. You can't overwrite the block stun. Characters no longer enter a blocking stance before projectile makes contact. So just to give you an example here. So Ino is going to do her note. And you can see right before it actually connects, I'm forced to block. So no longer will that be the case. You will only block when the move actually can be blocked. So it won't curtail your movement right before it hits. And guard crushes, the knockback caused by instant block and faultless defense, will now change when guard crushed by the opponent's attack. As we've seen already, you can move the enemy pretty far back, right? So this is a defense against guard crush moves. Although I'm going to warn you right now, Garuda Impact's still going to be really good. When an attack hits an opponent in the guard crush animation, the attack is treated as the first move in the combo. So what this means is, say setups like this where I force you to block my Garuda Impact or something like that, right? So now if I do that, Blue Roman cancel forward and I mix you up because Potemkin can go high or low afterwards, it'll basically count as the first hit of combo scaling. So I will do less overall damage. So for example, so this combo does 268 damage. Barely anything, right? Barely anything. And now it'll basically count as when I do my kick into my Garuda and then finally into Potemkin Buster. The Potemkin Buster, even though it's the third hit of the combo, it'll actually count as the fourth hit in for combo scaling. So it's not going to be worlds less damage, but situations like this should be less damage. So Soul Badguy. Soul's got some changes here. One of the bigger ones right off the bat, which affects his combo structure, is forward punch, 6p, can no longer wall bounce while juggling. So beforehand, right here in the current patch, you can kind of do like whatever, right? Like, and 6p, and then you get the wall bounce. And from the wall bounce, you're probably going to be doing something like, you know, his heavy punch uppercut. So that no longer can happen. That is no longer a wall bounce move. It'll float the opponent higher up, but no more wall bounces for you. So that's effectively a straight nerf. Forward heavy slash, Soul no longer can be counter hit after the active frames. So basically the part where he recovers, you can still hit him just fine, but it's no longer a counter hit state. For Bandit Revolver, that is cortical forward and kick, the big old double boots. There's quite a few changes here. So one, well, the move is being fundamentally changed. So you do it, it's a 2-hit move. Now the second hit has to be done manually by adding kick again. You have to hit the kick button twice. So you can just go into the knee, basically. And you only have to do the follow-up if you actually see it connect. So the knee is probably going to have different frame data, perhaps safe with certain spacing. We'll see, I guess. Who knows? But that's one of the main changes of the moves right off the bat. It says now triggers the counter effect. So perhaps the knee, if you just leave it at the knee and not do the second kick follow-up, can like trigger a big boy counter. That's the way I'm reading it as, maybe? Reduce recovery time, so it recovers faster. Lowered attack level, I think that has to do with moves clashing. We'll see, I guess. Expanded the hitbox in front and below on the second hit. So if you do choose to go for the second hit, if the first hit doesn't connect fully, or maybe it's in the combo situation where you can get the first hit but not the second, that'll just make that just a little bit easier. Increase distance from which the attack connects, so straight up the move just has a range buff. So perhaps like, you know, crouch S into the move here outside of counter hit, because it does work on counter hit, but outside of counter hit, that's not a natural combo. If the move has increased distance, then maybe it will be a natural combo. And finally, increase the base damage scaling, as mentioned at the start of the video. That's going to be happening for a lot of special moves, so if you use this as your combo starter, because it might be a proper combo starter move now, your combo will do a little bit less damage. And specifically the grounded one, not the air one, the grounded one has faster startup as well. Reduced startup time. So it's just going to be a much more catch-all move. This might be a move you want to do raw now. I guess time will tell when we get the patch. Night Raid Vortex and Fafnir both increase base damage scaling. So you'll still get all your combos from them, but those combos will do a little bit less damage. Soul definitely does a lot of damage, to be fair. So tuning it down, that's not so bad. And really, that's about it. So he still gets to keep a lot of his options. He actually seemingly has all new options with how Bandit Revolver might be changing up here. And he'll just do a little bit less damage. Kai Kisk. So for the little blurb of Balance Intentions, they talk a lot about making his fireballs basically more useful. The phrasing, which I really love here, this resulted in Stun Edge having limited use, which was a stressful element of playing Kai, because basically the fireballs sucked, right? Like, he's supposed to be a fireball character, but realistically, how useful were the fireballs? You know, kind of dubious use, because, you know, from this range, you die. You would die. Because this move is way too negative, and this is not enough pushback, right? So one of the things here for Stun Edge across the board is reduced recovery. You will now recover much faster. Although there is increased startup, but you know what? Doing most of your strings into a Stun Edge, there's already big gaps anyway, so what's a gap of like 1 or 2 frames more? Who cares? You already had the issue, so it's a little bit worse, but at the very least, you're probably safe on block now, which is the big deal. Another interesting thing here to help with the stun edges is the shock state. So when you're in the shock state, all of his moves will do more chip damage now, basically. Because, like, his moves you'd think would do, like this kind of move especially, you'd think would be a very high chip damage move, and realistically, like, that's like, it takes like 3 or 4 of these to get to like 1 Behemoth Typhoon or Garuda Impact. So when you are in the shock state, it is now perhaps viable to play the chip out game. We'll have to wait and see, I guess, but that seems very interesting to me. Vodraak now has increased base damage scaling, meaning you start the combo with it, then the combo will do a little bit less damage. This is a change that's happening across the board for a lot of characters, so don't worry too much about that. Sacred Edge says increase the movement speed of the hitbox. So the way I'm reading it is the projectile should be much quicker than it currently is, because it's not that quick, to be honest with you, so maybe it'll be a good deal faster yet. And Dragon Install. Everyone loves Dragon Install, right? Let's talk it. So the base Dragon Install itself, because it does have a hitbox, and that hitbox was buffed in the last patch, now will do more damage. The activation is now a more powerful attack when used in the shock state. So if you're shocked, I guess it'll do more damage yet again. And while you're shocked and you're in Dragon Install state, it says increase chip damage of special moves and overdrives while it's activated. So if you're already shocked, you're already taking more chip, right? From his specials. And if you're shocked and you're in Dragon Install, and then you're taking chip, this might be turning Kai into a chip damage monster. This might now actually be a valid game plan. Like, okay, if I have you in a shock state, and I'm in Dragon Install, and you're blocking, who cares? Like, maybe this will be like the Goldlewis thing. You can play like Goldlewis, and chip damage is a very viable route to go for. Have to wait and see, but you have 2 layers of bonus chip damage now between Dragon Install and the shock state. And with projectiles seemingly being quite a bit better and a lot more realistic to use in the middle of a match, this could be very fun stuff for Kai. For May, one of the big things here that's mentioned in the balance intentions is Mr. Dolphin. Y'all know him, y'all love him or hate him, right? Mr. Dolphin may be a bit too strong. And the counterplay, as it were, for Mr. Dolphin was to do something quick like a stand punch, which could sometimes just lead to you dying, right? Because it's too quick to react to sometimes. So now the thing, thanks to the changes of 6P and the changes of Mr. Dolphin itself here, which is reducing the hitbox below, you might actually be able to just 6P it, bro, right? You actually might be able to use this as a valid form of defense. If so, that's massively going to change the May matchup for a lot of characters. So for some of the other changes here, a tweet says less distance from the opponent when it's hitting in the stage corner. So as you do it normally, there's a lot of pushback, right? So it should be able to do this from, say, you know, less than point blank and still manage to hit the up dolphin. So that'll help create more combo possibilities. Like Soul, wall bounce on her forward punch is now removed, which it is what it is, I guess. Forward HS, this is the uncharged version, sends the opponent flying on a grounded hit. So as it currently stands, it knocks back, but it does not knock down. So now it will knock down. It also says reduce the amount of risk level decrease. I'm assuming they mean the increase, like it'll just not give as much risk as it does as it stands. Because as it stands, it gives quite a bit of risk on regular hit. And reduced the amount of combo blowback scaling increase, which is awful language, because you reduce the increase, and what am I supposed to take away from that, right? But I think it means you'll do more overall damage and combos with it, because unlike some of the other moves, it reduces the combo scaling. And going back to the dolphins here, so all dolphins increased base damage scaling. So if you start the combo with a dolphin, like a counter hit or something, your overall combo will do a little bit less damage. And reduce the hitbox for Mr. Dolphin, the base version, so you should be able to just 6p it. Mr. Dolphin also has a damage nerf, but only on the up ascent. Like, if it's coming down, there will be no nerf. Reduce the hurt box above during ascent, so it's a little easier, harder rather, to hit on the way up, I'm supposing. That's the way I'm reading it. And increase the distance from which the attack can connect, so it's actually easier to use in combos. So overall, May reads like a bit of a nerf, although I guess we'll have to wait and see to the extent of how bad it'll actually be. Although, to be fair, they do make these changes to mines with the start of the balance intentions. Their changes are made with the return of aerial landing attack because they expect her to get a lot out of the air combo changes. So Axel's gonna be scary in a way. They mentioned here in the balance intentions, Axel benefits greatly from the overall changes to fast normals and aerial attacks. As an example, counter hit on Jump S, you know, this guy here, the move we all love to hate, right? Jump S can now be followed up using an air dash cancel. So yes, keep in mind with some of the universal changes, if he counter hits with this, which he does very often, it'll cause a much greater screen slow effect, more like a grounded slash attack. And that means he can do this, then air dash, and then keep the combo going. So jump S, air dash, jump H is going to be a natural combo by the looks of it. So yeah. Going on to mention here, as his options of landing and attack are now more powerful, we have revised the function of each of his normals, so players must use each of his aerial normals for distinct purposes. So now just going into it here, the base dash reduce the upper hurt box after the animation starts, meaning basically he's just a little bit lower to the ground when he's running. His crouch K, this guy here, now has faster startup, although they don't go into how many frames. I'm assuming 1 frame faster. And same here, so crouch S, that's this guy here. Increase base damage scaling, so if you start the combo with this guy, you'll do a little bit less damage. For 6p, it says now the opponent will float higher. So they'll go up instead of just across, I'm assuming. So it'll definitely help combo ability after a 6p. Jump S and Jump HS and Jump D. These guys are all getting changes. So Jump S, more startup because it's going to be a way better move in the end and you get a lot more damage. So yes, increase startup. Reduce active frames, once again, because you're going to get a lot more out of it. Expand the hurt box in the front, once again, more because you're going to get a lot more out of it. So it's a little easier to deal with in exchange for there's so many more options he's going to get out of it. Same here, Jump HS, reduce the hitbox front and behind because now it's going to be a combo tool. So we'll see how that goes. Jump D has reduced active frames, reduced hitbox. Once again, his aerial stuff's going to get so much stronger, so they're toning it down just a little bit to make it a bit more even and balanced. Sickle Flash has increased the clash level, so it should no longer clash with some of the things it currently does. It should just beat them outright. And Axel's now in a counter hit state until the animation ends. So this is a big thing to play around it, because if you successfully go over it while he's doing it, right? You can now be guaranteed you'll have a counter hit state. So your combo, whatever you're gonna get, you'll have an opportunity to get bigger damage than you did before. So against Axels who just spam this all day long, if you can successfully navigate around it, your reward will be better. Conversely, Rainwater, this guy here. So after the move is done being able to hit you, you can no longer counter hit him. Before, he was counter hittable but just until he hit the ground, right? Now, only after the attack, or only up to rather the attack being done. So he's a little safer doing this move. But overall, Axel, yes, there's definitely some nerfs, but just going by his jumping attacks and the fact his jumping attacks control a range of the screen no other character can dare hope to contest, and they're going to get much better and much more combo opportunities from them. It's definitely to be seen if Axel's not just going to be a better character overall, despite some of the nerfs he's getting. So, Chipp. Chipp got nerfed and buffed at the same time. Says for the balance intentions, Alpha Blade, now easier to use combos and strengths, and big changes to crouching HS. So crouching HS will basically, as it's written here, will decrease the horizontal distance the opponent is sent flying back. Meaning, well, basically, they're going to be near on top of you. It might keep the vertical distance up, but they won't be knocked back far away, so your combo potential mid-screen is going to be going way up. For the Alpha Blade, so this is the diagonal version and the aerial version specifically, increased startup on the diagonal version going up. Adjusted the movement, speed, and blowback, although they didn't say how exactly. We'll find out when the patch goes live. Adjusted the movement, speed, and blowback when bounding off the stage corner, so definitely something changing with corner combos. The air version reduced startup, meaning it's going to be happening faster. Moved the hitbox further back, so it might be a little bit more difficult to mix up with it now, and they did talk about they want to change the mix-up potential a little bit. Chipp is now in a counter hit state until the active frames end, so it's a little easier to counter hit. Shuriken says increase the distance from which the attack connects, so basically making the projectile better than it currently is my understanding. And when he's in the wall run state, you can't counter hit him anymore. So that's pretty interesting. So as it states here, especially with the crouch HS change, his combo potential mid-screen should be much better, but his mix-up potential, like off the aerial Alpha Blade, is probably going to be worse. So he'll get better combos overall, but the mix, like off stuff like Alpha Blade, because this stuff's really difficult to block. It says they increased the startup as it was overly influenced by individual reaction times and play environments. Meaning, you're not blocking a laggy Chipp. You can't block a laggy Chipp. Wi-Fi Chipp, this was free. So they don't want Wi-Fi Chipp to be any stronger. So they are nerfing that, but they're compensating him by giving him big boy combos mid-screen. What? Did you think Potemkin was going to get nerfed? Oh, people said, Rooflemonger, how dare you ask for buffs for Heavenly Potemkin Buster? But don't worry, Arxis knew better, so they gave me the buffs for Heavenly Potemkin Buster. Thank you very much, Papa Arxis. You guys know what to do. So as far as the balance intentions, they state here, in accordance with the general direction of making anti-airs easier to combo off of, forward P, 6P, can now be special canceled, because Potemkin definitely cannot special cancel 6P. Like, one of the benefits he got, yes, was his 6P, unlike some other characters, it leaves you in a true hard knockdown state, and true hard knockdown state, like, basically directly on top of you, right? But now, well, you can do that and cancel into a Heat Knuckle, or cancel into a Heavenly Potemkin Buster, and hopefully cancel and connects into a Mega Fist. That's a wait and see, because Mega Fist is weird sometimes, but if you can 6P into a Mega Fist, then you basically have, like, that'll be the better option, but that's a wait and see. Don't know for sure on that. So, for other changes, stand S, this guy right here. So increase the rolling time. So if you hit the enemy out of the air specifically, as you can see, the enemy rolls, they'll now roll longer, so this will become a natural combo from further away. Like, this will become a natural combo on regular hit, not on counter hit. It does combo on counter hit, yes. And it's basically just to give you, okay, you do that, then you rush in, do whatever you're going to do. So now, this makes it a lot more valuable to use just whenevs. Because obviously it doesn't work right now. And basically, a lot of times you do this and you want to go into, stand S, stand HS. But if they're any kind of in the air, then this didn't work. You'll whiff the stand HS. So this gives you an option to go to that's valuable and worthwhile, and you'll get a good reward out of it, other than just whiffing a normal. So stand HS, it says here, reduce the hurt box in front, so it's a little harder to counterpoke this move is the way I'm reading it. Obviously 4P now special cancelable, just like everyone else in the game. Forward kick, big shoulder, decrease the amount of risk level reduction, who knows, I'm assuming it means does a little less risk. and reduce the amount of combo blowback adjustment, which I don't even know what that means. I'm assuming less damage if it's the combo starter. Forward HS, big double fist. Also reduce the hurtbox in front, so making it just a little harder to counter poke. Jump D. Now this is potentially a big one. Now can be special cancelled when Potemkin lands. So I can do this, and when I land, immediately go into Potemkin Buster. Now if this works, if you block it at the exact top of the move, and you recover in time for me to Potemkin Buster you, that's Mix-Up City. Because now you gotta like jump immediately. Or conversely, I can do this right into a slide head, which is armored and 0 on block. So if you try to like challenge with a button right away, I'll just armor through it, slide head you, and then it's Mix-Up City. Gotta play around with it. But if this works the way I hope this works, where I can just special cancel in anything, this is gonna be some new scary stuff. FDB, that's flick that back, the finger here, says now triggers the counter effect, so it should be like that, that's my understanding. Now reflects projectiles while holding the S button, because that's a thing. So obviously, naturally, yes, you reflect stuff, right? Sure. However, if it's held, you can get hit out of it. As you can see right there, right? So the way I'm reading this is it should just automatically go into reflect if the projectile contacts you. So there'll be less situations now that fireballs are going to be stronger where you accidentally get hit waiting for the correct time to reflect it. And increase the base damage scaling, because if it has the proper counter effect, it should be able to start combos now, so those combos won't do too much damage. Garuda Impact, increase the base damage scaling, so combos with Garuda will do less damage. Although the universal changes, where we went over at the top of the video, how you get pushed back further and further with Garuda, don't expect that to save you too much, honestly. I don't consider it that big of a nerf at all. And naturally, too, as far as Garuda goes, like, we still have Kara Garuda, so you can slide forward to negate the pushback, so there you go. Heavenly Potemkin Buster. Increase the distance from which the attack connects. So you can now hit this from further away, hopefully closer to how it was in the betas, because as it stands, man, it's rough. You gotta really be on top of someone, and they gotta be directly beside you. Like, the move kind of sucks to actually snatch people out of the air. It's all right for, like, you know, if I catched you for like a big combo for big damage, sure, it's all right for that. But to use it as a dedicated anti-air, it sucks. Straight up, it's not good. So hopefully this makes it more worthwhile to actually try to catch someone while they're jumping. And Gigantic Kai kind of got a nerf. Reduce the hitbox of the projectile in front and behind. There are so many situations where the enemy is behind me and I still hit you with the super, so that's probably going to be curtailed a bit. But overall, a couple nerfs, yes, but I do not feel like he's nerfed at all. Especially if Jump Dust works the way I think it will work, I consider Potemkin buffed overall. When it comes to Faust, one word for you, and that is Afro install. There is now a reason for you to wear the Afro on yourself. There's actually a benefit to it. What is that benefit? Love, which is the bag bomb, where he tosses his head at you, now gets better. So as they write it, Love now has different properties when used while Faust is in the Afro state. The properties are stronger as the explosion will only hit the opponent, meaning it can't hit you, because as it currently stands, if you're like a little too close to the move, like you both get hit, right? So if you have the Afro on, apparently you will no longer be hit. And this makes it beneficial for Faust to either take the Afro for himself, or for the opponent to take it when it appears via, what could this be? So you actually get, you can be more reckless with the bag bomb basically if you have the Afro up, which is pretty interesting and fun. On to some of the more direct changes here, and he's got a decent amount. The dash reduced the upper hurt box directly after the animation starts, meaning he's even lower to the ground than he already is when he's running. Stand P, reduced startup, so he had a 6-frame Stand P, no longer. I'm assuming this will just be a 5-framer now, but at the very least, that's something to work with. 6P, decrease the amount of distance the opponent is set back, and expand the hitbox in front, so it's more usable perhaps as a poke or slash counter poke. And the fact they're not going as far away means perhaps you can catch them with a normal or something? I don't know, that we'll have to wait and see. Crouch S, increased base damage scaling, so if you start a combo with it or whatever, it'll do less damage, but decrease the upper hurt box during the end of the active frames, meaning it's better as an anti-air. Like, you're more able to catch people with this move and not get smacked in the head. So Little less combo damage, sure, but much better anti-air. That works. For mix, you can't be counter hit once the part of you that can hit is over, and increase the overall base damage scaling like many other moves in the game for things like the donut and the banana. So when you have either of these items on the screen, it'll basically be less likely that your next item toss will be one of those. So you can get something a bit more beneficial to you or detrimental to your enemy. And for the banana specifically, on top of having less chance that you'll throw another banana, there is a chance if you do throw another banana, the banana will just become the banana peel, which is something you can trip over, it has to be blocked, all that kind of stuff. So it'll throw out the raw banana peel instead of the banana. Snip, this is the command grab. So decrease the horizontal distance the opponent will be moved back. So basically they're going to be closer to you after the knockback, which is great. Like, part of command grabs, the whole deal is, okay, I got my command grab, now it's time to pressure you on your wake up, and now he'll be much more available and easy to do that outside of the corner. So that is a big buff to the move. Also, reduced recovery. It doesn't say how, where, so either on whiff or when you do the move, but either way, that's a buff. And the opponent will no longer enter the Afro state due to an item effect during this move, though that's kind of the thing. So the way I'm reading this is, you just don't get the Afro anymore, which granted that's a big nerf. Like, putting the Afro on the enemy is one of the bigger deals of this move, right? That's kind of the biggest deal. We'll have to wait and see for the patch to go live. Sometimes the language is a little bit suspect, but once again, as it's written here, they'll no longer enter the Afro state due to an item effect during the move. We'll see. I don't know. For love, once again here, different properties while you're in the Afro state. You will no longer be subject to the blowback of the move if you do it too close while you have an Afro on. And the Afro itself extended the time until it disappears after touching the ground, so the item will be in play for much longer because it's barely in play as it currently stands. It goes away very quickly. And no longer entering the Afro state in certain animations, which needs a little elaboration. And finally, his super item toss now will have faster recovery than it currently does. Millia has some interesting changes here. First, stand for S. Reduce the lower hurt box and hitbox. Specifically here in the bounce tensions is because this move can pretty often beat 6Ps, 4P, and they don't want it to do that. So you give a little, you get a little on that. Crouching P, decrease startup, meaning it is a faster startup move. This is a 6-framer normally, so I'm assuming this is at least 5 frames now. Forward P, that's 6P, decrease the horizontal distance the opponent sent back. So they'll now be closer to you, but it'll make them float a little bit higher. So if it's specifically used like against an airborne move, they'll go up higher than they currently do, but also not go as far back. Very interesting change, forward K, so that's her overhead, and that's kind of a slower overhead, but it can now be special, canceled, and super canceled. So you could go like this here and then go like immediately into Lush Shaker, something like that. So it's not, a world-changing change, I guess, but it's a very interesting change. Also, if it happens to connect, the opponent is now forced into a crouching state on ground to hit, so it's a forced crouch move. Force stand, force crouch, there are things that happen in a lot of fighting games, but they're sort of rare, and in this game, moves that change your positioning by force is very rare. It does state, though, increased recovery, so that means this move is probably no longer plus on block, because as it currently stands, it's +1 on block. But now you can just cancel into Lush Shaker and just make it safe anyways, so you give a little, you get a little, I guess. Forward HS, this guy here, the command normal. Reduce the startup of the second hit, so I'm assuming that removes the gap. Some characters, if she did it literally point blank, could throw her out of the second hit, although that is literally point blank. If she's even like 1 pixel out, then it didn't really work that way. For the Potemkin match, because that's a matchup I know, Potemkin could actually backwards Mega Fist out of the gap. So I'm assuming he no longer can do that. All the jumping normals can now be cancelled with air backdash. Very important. So everyone across the board, you can do more forward air dash stuff, right? That's cool. That's interesting. That's good. But for this, that means she can do probably a lot more just mix-ups and shenanigans, because everyone can only cancel into their forward dash. She can do it with the back dash. Her turbo fall special move can now be canceled mid-air in the middle of the animation. So you can probably do this and then go like into jump kick, jump punch, something like that. So now you basically have like Marvel triangle jumps with this move. That's kind of how I'm reading this. Could potentially be very strong and definitely up her mix-up game quite a bit. For top, S version specifically has less startup, so it'll come out faster than it currently does. Miraz, that's her little short-range teleport move here, can now be cancelled in mid-animation with some special moves. So the way I'm reading it, you can go to Miraz and then go right into like a tandem top or something. So we kind of almost have like a Terra dash forward move, at least as far as movement is concerned. Adjusted the movement speed, although they don't say one way or the other, good or bad, and reduce the length of time during which she can phase through the opponent. So that's, I guess, a little bit of a nerf, but it could also be a little bit of a buff or mix-ups. I don't know. But now you can cancel the move into other moves, so that'll be pretty interesting. Lust Shaker added more knockback to the move. So the knockback's already pretty severe as it is, so it's going to be even more. Expanded the lower hurt box and hitbox, so easier to connect with, but also easier to get hit out of. And Winger, that is their big angel super. Expanded the lower hitbox while ascending. So the way I'm reading this is there's these situations where you might miss on the enemy and might whiff. This should catch some of those situations, making it just a little bit better overall. So Millia overall, kind of interesting. Her mix-up potential is just going up, up, up. So if you like the mix-ups, especially because some of Chipp's mix-ups getting nerfed, it looks like Millia is probably going to be the premier mix-up character in the game. Zato, interesting changes as well. One of the things I'm a big fan of is, obviously we all know, Zato, very high execution character, and even worse than the high execution, it's hard to understand character, right? If you're newer to fighting games, Zato is not your guy, let's be real, right? But one of the buffs he's getting, which helps mitigate that a bit, is on the Eddie front. So like say Eddie, you do 2 frogs, you're done, time for Eddie to rest. But if you use the command for Eddie, now it'll use less meters. All the Eddie moves that use the direct command, so quarter circle forward, whatever button, instead of you just letting go of the button for negative edge, will now use less meter. So say you get 2 frogs as it currently stands, right? We don't know the exact meter changes, but it might be if you use the command move, you might get 3 uses instead, or at the very least 1 more use per move, right? So there's an actual benefit to doing the motion versus just releasing the button and getting the move. Because for the most part, doing the motion was strictly worse because you locked yourself into a motion. So now, when you do the clap here, or you summon them directly, you take less meter for Eddie, and there's an actual positive benefit. You get to use more Eddie than the traditional way, which is basically better. So that's kind of a big bonus. Stand P also decreased startup, so no longer a 6-framer, I'm very sure. Forward P, decrease the horizontal distance the opponent is sent back. Forward Punch, 6P, decrease the horizontal distance the opponent is sent back, so they'll be closer to you. 6K, also very fun. So this is an overhead, and will now be special cancelable. So they said basically it's to differentiate you using this versus the dust, because there really was no real reason to use this over the dust. So now you can special cancel. Really cool. You can go to like invite hell, something like that. I don't know what you want to do, but you can do something. And the opponent is forced to crouch once this connects. And on top of all that, decreased startup, so the overhead itself is faster. Invite Hell has a better hitbox. It already kind of had a pretty good hitbox, especially on the part where it went down, right? But expanded the hitbox in front and behind. So it just hits even more, it controls more of the screen than it already did. So between 6K being an overhead and being special cancelable, making it a lot more deadly and scary and getting faster, and the fact you have an actual reason to use the Eddie command summons that lock you into animation because you're going to be using less Eddie meter. Not the like total reinvention of the character or anything, but very positive for sure. Ramlethal has some interesting stuff to work with. One of the bigger changes here off the bat, Stand S now has less pushback. And so basically, if you stand S at max range, you should always be able to connect into Daro now. Now you can normally if you're closer, but if you're anywhere near max range, it was not going to happen. Now this should be reliable across all the ranges, which seems pretty good to me. As a flip though, Stand HS now pushes back further. So with the two combined, it should be roughly the same as what it is right now before the patch. because one has less pushback and one has more pushback, right? So going into Darrow from that, probably not happening. But yeah, just it gives you basically a different thing to poke with. If you want more damage, then you can go into Darrow and get some of the options from there versus just always just doing, you know, S into HS. Like many other characters, 6P now, when connecting with an enemy, will float higher. So it should make, you know, counter hit stuff a lot more workable because 6Ps are being buffed across the board. Jump HS, Jump D. So Jump HS has increased startup, so it's slower, and they both have increased knockback. But keep in mind, due to the changes, you can go like Jump D, Air Dash, Jump D again, or something like that. She already has very strong air normals, so a lot of these changes are going to benefit her. Or you go Jump S and Gatling in the Jump D, that'll be an option as well. And that's multi-hitting and weird to work with. So yeah, it's nerfs to the moves, but she's getting buffed due to the overall changes. The sword tosses. So fix the location on the ground where it'll be set after touching the stage corner. So I guess it's just basically like a bug fix is the way I'm reading it. After setting up the sword, if Ramlethal takes damage before it reaches the stage corner, the sword will no longer explode. So basically if she gets counter hit out of it before the explosion would go off, the explosion's not going off. So that's definitely a nerf, but it's a nerf I'm not going to feel too bad for you for, honestly, because ain't nobody likes dealing with this stuff in the corner. Darrow, like so many other special moves, increase the base damage scaling, meaning you're not going to be doing as much damage with combos. That's fine. That's across the board. That's not just Ramlethal. So the overhead. One big change, perhaps the biggest change, is it's no longer an overhead. So yeah, it's kind of a big change, but it's getting stuff to recompense for it. So first up here, expanded the lower and behind hitbox, meaning it is more than likely able to be a good cross-up now. As it currently stands, not so much. Not to say it's impossible, but not so much. So it's going to be better as a cross-up. And also has reduced recovery, so it goes recovery quite a bit faster. And also, it wall bounces now. So that's going to be interesting. So when it comes to like combo potential, the combo potential is going up. Also with the reduced recovery, we'll see, but the move on block is definitely going to be different. In the game, as it currently stands as an overhead, it's a little negative on block, but it's not punishable, unless you're like Soul or Chipp, right? But in the older games, in Exard, that move was plus on block. So with the new change of recovery, it might be plus on block again. Hey, who knows? At the very least, it should be less negative. But yeah, so perhaps better as a cross-up, and also wall bounces. So it lost stuff, yes, but it's also gaining stuff. Sabrobato, that's the giant smash. Increased base damage scaling, which is a shame. Because combos that just do this and like RC over and over and over, that do like a million damage, those were kind of cool. Hopefully damage is not reduced too much. The Rekka series, so no longer can you dash cancel on whiff, because that's what you can do right now. You can still dash cancel on hit, but not on whiff. And now, on top of that, so you do your dash cancel, and now you can special cancel your dash cancel. So you go first hit, dash cancel, and then cancel that dash cancel into like a sword toss or something. So that'll definitely open up pressure routes for one. It'll make her a lot more difficult to read, perhaps new combo routes as well. That's a very interesting change. The second hit of the Rekka, the big boot. So that can be dash canceled now. So before, and the current build of the game that we're playing right now, only the first hit can be dash canceled. The second one cannot. It also reduced startup, so it comes out faster. It has reduced recovery, so it recovers faster, but it has removed the guard crush effect. So you lose that, but you get a move that starts up faster, recovers faster, and can now be dash canceled, adding another layer of mix-up. And the final hit of the Rekka series, that guy there, reduced startup, so it comes out faster, increased recovery, so on block the situation should be a little different, and reduced the knockback. Doesn't say how much, but should leave the enemy much closer to you than it currently stands. Overall, I'm going to say this is a buff. The first one being able to be dash cancel and special cancel dash cancel, that's real tricky stuff. Adding the dash cancel to the second hit on potentially making it much safer and faster to work with, that's good. And yeah, we'll wait and see, but yeah, that reads as a buff to me. And Calvados, the big super, so reduced recovery, so she recovers faster, and the last hit has a guard break attached to it. That's interesting. So I saw some people like crying Ramlethal's destroyed and nerfed, and like, I don't know, man. I really don't know. Some of these changes could definitely make Ramlethal, like, you'll shift the game plan a bit, I guess. But some of these look pretty good to me. For Leo, this is definitely an overall nerf. You'll understand it when we get to it, I guess. Some of the stuff here, so stand S, stand HS, you know, if you hold the move, you go to his little stance, right? So the way it's reading here, sped up the timing when it can be followed up with a command normal. Number 4 specifically. So command normal number 4 is the stance. So you should be able to go into stance a little bit quicker is my understanding from reading this. 6P, forward P, the opponent will float up a little bit higher if you catch them while they are airborne. So that'll be good, I guess. Forward HS, interesting change. I don't know if it's a nerf or a buff. Now floats the enemy on a ground hit. So they're going to be airborne when you hit them on the ground. So perhaps this could lead to new combo opportunities because you definitely don't really get anything other than like special canceling. So maybe you can go into a normal or something? I don't know. Decrease the horizontal distance the opponent sent flying back if you hit them when they're airborne hit. Now command normal number 4 again. This is a buff. You now can move faster while you're in the stance. You definitely don't move all too quick. So that's a buff. Command normal 5. That's when you attack when you're in the stance. Has reduced recovery, so you just get out of the move quicker. So better on whiff and should be less negative on block. Now here's the big one. So Zweit Kultis Gestorber. I can't pronounce German to save my life. Increase startup. So for all y'all that the cross up was your bread and butter, even if it's only a single frame slower, increased startup means you're 1 frame less likely to get your mix. So for a lot of Leo players, this is the only change that matters, and increased startup means it's less strong than it currently is. Other moves, and yes, this is across the board, as we've gone over many times, damage scaling is changing for the worse a little bit. They're trying to lower the damage in the game just a smidge, not a lot. But the cross-up damage is going to be a little lower if you manage to combo into it. Turbulence, that's the big back turn, same deal. The guard break, same deal, just a little bit less damage scaling, so a little bit less damage in combos. A change that doesn't really matter, P, punch, in back turn stance, can no longer be jump canceled. I didn't really see anyone use it that much, honestly. If there's secret jump cancel tech, I don't know, but they gave it to you and now they took it away. It's gone. But overall, not that big of a change. He benefits from the 6P buff a lot more than the average character because his 6P is pretty bad, honestly. So he can definitely work with that. The change to 6HS, I guess we'll have to see. That could be a buff. But as far as the mix goes, once again, even if it's only a single frame slower, I know a lot of Leo players, this is their bread and butter. This is what they need to play the game. So making that a little bit worse definitely means overall nerf. Even if everything else in the end is sort of a buff. Nagoriyuki is pretty interesting because you thought maybe he'd get nerfed, but I think this is overall a buff. So when it comes to him, once again here, 4P like so many other characters, reduce the horizontal distance the opponent is sent flying when you hit them when they're airborne. He really spikes people away more than the average character, so that's not as good. It says also makes them float higher. So he might actually get some return off it. He does not have a great anti-air 6P when it comes to getting stuff. So now he might. Ramlethal, the projectile. This is getting a straight buff. Of all of his blood-based moves, you know, like, that's definitely kind of the weakest one, right? So reduce startup for 1, so it'll come out faster than it currently does. Increase the movement speed of the hitbox, meaning the clone will travel faster than it currently does. So it starts up quicker and moves quicker. Well, those are 2 good buffs. Unified the size of the clash range. That's a little iffy. It's hard to tell. Shouldn't come up too much. But yeah, the move starts up faster and the projectile moves faster. So you might actually want to use this instead of just constantly super jumping and working your way in. There could be an actual benefit to this move now. Beyblade, of course this is getting a change, but it's barely a change because it's just increased the base damage scaling. So using this as a combo, and especially more likely a combo starter, you'll do a little bit less damage, but I'm not too worried that that crazy Nagoriyuki damage is really going anywhere. They didn't change any of the properties of the move. The move is still exactly as good as it is in every conceivable way, except the damage will be a little less overall. So, yo, it's still one of the most abusable moves in the game. And his uppercut style motion move now is a 2-hitting move. So as you do it normally, in the current build of the game, it's double hitter. But now, if you want the second hit, you have to press the heavy slash button a second time. Otherwise, it's only the launch. Which means you might be able to get something without having to burn extra blood to teleport on the launch. And get like a combo follow-up, right? That was always, one of the more aspects of the character is you had to do that. And now, maybe you don't. And if so, that saves a lot of blood use in combos, and that makes him scarier, honestly. Now, it does state here, adjusted blowback, in accordance to the changes of its function. Now that, we gotta wait and see. That could be anything. But if it just kind of works roughly as you think it is, that's a big benefit. Also, reduced startup, so it'll come out faster. And the second hit now triggers a counter effect. So if you manage to hit with the second hit, you'll get the big boy counter. So overall, were you expecting him to be nerfed? Because as it kind of stands, he got hit on some of the universal changes like the damage stuff like everybody else. But as it stands, it's kind of a slight buff. For Giovanna, one of the most interesting changes here, right off the bat, is change to her dash. So Giovanna, it says specifically sped up the timing when it can be canceled into other actions, meaning effectively, you can cancel any dash into buttons faster than you already can. Now you can do it pretty quick, but now you can do it all the faster yet, meaning you can get basically near instant normals with the dash property. It only takes a few frames to go off now, but maybe it only might take 1, 2, or 3 frames to go off as it currently stands now under the new patch. Meaning she just gets scarier, basically. Her rushdown is going to be more competent. Her effective footsies, if you will, because you carry a lot of the dash momentum when you dash into a normal, will be among the best in the game. So watch out, really, all I can say. That's definitely the big change, her dash offense getting stronger than it already is, since you can do it earlier. But of course we have more mundane changes. Standing kick, adjusted blowback, doesn't say how or why. Close S, that's the big old knee to the gut. So increased knockback, so they'll be a little further out is the way I'm reading it, which is I guess technically a slight nerf, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal in the end. Stand far S, that is the triple kick. Stand far S has decreased the lower hitbox and hurtbox. I'm assuming, like some other characters got a similar change, this is so this move doesn't beat your 6P, your forward punch move for free, because it already hit so low to the ground that the hittable part of the 6P was just there, and you can just beat it. So now it should lose to 6Ps more often, the forward and punch. Crouching S, the double kicks. So expanded the upper hitbox so it hits from higher up than it normally does, and the second hit will now trigger the counter effect. And that's the big counter. So if you hit with the first hit, slash, you get a big counter. But if you only hit with the second hit, you get the much smaller, kind of more normal, lame counter, right? So now you'll always get the good counter regardless of which hit connects. Her universal 6P, forward and punch, anti-air, now states floats the enemy higher up. As it stands, it kind of moves them really far away, so if they go higher up, your ability to combo and confirm should get all the better yet from it. Sol Nascente, that is her big wheel kick here, move the hitbox of the initial part of the attack upwards, meaning it's going to be just all the better yet to stop anti-air moves. And Ventania, that's her big Eddie Gordo wheel kick super here. So now floats the enemy when any hit other than the final one hits a grounded opponent. So the way I'm reading this, and we'll have to wait, is if you manage to like juggle with it, when you juggle with it, sometimes certain hits can miss, like the final hit can miss. So perhaps it'll create a juggle state. This one is a little difficult. This is like a wait and see. We got to see the actual patch in action. But overall, not big changes, but just, you know, making Crouch S a little bit better, a little bit more worthwhile to work with. Yeah, she got some of the damage scaling nerfs, but that's universal. So I'm not really counting that against her as a nerf. 6P maybe giving more reward as an anti-air. And obviously, naturally, the dash changes. The fact that you can like dash attack even faster just makes her everything better. Her offense is a lot stronger. And she as well will benefit from a lot of the air changes in the game as well. So overall, looking like it's going to be a good patch for Giovanna. For Anji Mito, he got a lot the last patch, and he's getting a lot again. So maybe Anji fans, you'll finally be happy with where he's at. So first up here, the Butterfly. Butterfly has faster startup, better recovery. So the move all around is just faster. It says reduce hit stop on the first hit. That shouldn't be too much of a big deal, honestly, because overall the move is just better. So you can actually use it outside of like, okay, I got my knockdown, and like I'm going to use it on your wake up. There should be able to be uses for the move now outside of that. Stand Far S, that's this guy here. Decrease the lower hitbox and hurtbox. I'm assuming, once again, like many other changes, is so it doesn't accidentally stuff 6Ps. They want 6Ps to be the counter poke button, so if you poke, now you'll get counter poked. So technically a nerf, yes, but many other characters got this change. Crouching P, faster startup. So don't say how many frames, but it's got to be at least 1 frame faster, right? Forward Punch, 6P, now has increased hitbox on the front. Like, it whiffs pretty close. Like, as you can see, right? It's bad. It whiffs pretty bad. So it should be able to hit people from further away. Fujin now has reduced startup, so it comes out even faster. It does have increased damage scaling, but like many other moves, that's not too different. Like, so many characters have that change as well, so it's not a big bad thing. With Fujin being faster, it says here in the balance intentions, so from far S and close S, you should be able to natural combo into Fujin. Because as it stands, you can't. On regular hit, it's not a natural combo, so now it should be a natural combo, just really buffing his overall presence mid-screen, that a random poke will be much more valuable now. For Ko, that is the anti-air move here. It says, added a guard crush effect to the second hit. That is very interesting. Also, reduce the horizontal distance the opponent sent flying back on the second hit. So basically, instead of just knocking them back near full screen, they'll be closer to you, meaning you can run forward and pressure them better, or maybe use the new and improved Butterfly on them. So Ko getting a guard break, which is weird. Fujin being even faster than it already is. 6P actually being able to hit people from further away versus point blank. And obviously Butterfly potentially being a much better move. So Anji, he already ate good before. Looks like he's eating good again. Ino got a lot the last patch. Like a lot. And she became a much better character for it. And this time around, I guess they're thinking, well, I guess Ino got enough. She still has some positive changes though. So 6P, like so many other characters, now floats up higher, so it should help with anti-air stuff. Stand S now has more range straight up. It'll hit people from further away, so it should hit from roughly around here now, versus you have to be a little closer in the current build of the game. And starts up faster, so just a better poke all around. Her note, her projectile. So increased startup, but reduced recovery. So it takes a couple more frames to get the move out, but she'll recover a few frames faster. Increase the movement speed of the projectile itself, the hitbox, so it'll travel a little bit faster than it currently does. Reduce hit stop, which is kind of whatever, it doesn't really matter. The multi-hits does what it needs to do. And sped up the timing during when the number of attacks increases. So the further you are away, the more hits the moves does, right? So that's 5 hits versus like 1 hit point blank. So it should get to more hits faster. And it says here, made it easier to alter the trajectory, so maybe it does so faster. Overall, I would definitely say it is a buff. She already got so much buffed, and this is her big screen control move to lock you down while she's doing all of her mix. So she'll be better for it in the end. That's about it, but her projectile being changed should help her just control neutral better. Slower startup, yes, but faster recovery, so that sort of evens out. The fact that the projectile moves faster and seemingly can go up or down faster, that should help a lot. So Ino might be where she needs to be. Goldlewis is interesting. Him more than any other character, we really have to wait for the patch to come out. I can tell you what the changes are, but without actually seeing how they work, it can be difficult. First up here, the big thing, Crouch P, faster startup. Even if it's 1 frame faster, that'll make life easier. Forward P, even though the hitbox is still suspect, it'll now float the enemy higher. So perhaps with the new special cancelable thing, you could hit him, then float him, Behemoth Typhoon him even higher up yet, and maybe get a little bit of a combo. That could be very interesting. The big deal is this, aerial Behemoth Typhoons. So Aerial Behemoth Typhoons, when you do them, the trajectory now changes when activated above a set movement speed, specifically when you're air dashing. So when you air dash and do a Behemoth Typhoon, something's different. So in the build right now as it currently stands, like you do whatever Typhoon and you start falling to the ground, right? And a lot of Typhoons, you can't even really get much. Like you'll fall to the ground before anything even really like activates, right? So we'll see, I guess. We actually need to see how it works. Could be the biggest deal or it could be nothing. I don't know. Gotta see how it works when the patch is live. Skyfish, that is the big old minigun. So Skyfish has reduced startup when activating at security level above 2. I'm assuming they mean 2 and above, because above 2 means only level 3, which is weird, right? And so that'd be cool. And definitely makes the move a lot more usable if level 2 and above you get a faster startup, because the startup, as we all know, is very slow. And the very interesting thing, which once again we need to see how this works, is can now cancel the action by pressing the S button when activating at a security level above 2. So you basically can do minigun cancels. And that, who knows? So you'll still drain the meter. As it currently stands, the second you press the button, the meter is drained, your security meter. But if I could go like, I don't know, button, and then minigun cancel and then do something else, that could be new combos, that could be new mix-ups. Who really knows, right? So we have potential new stuff when it comes to just general game plan. And with faster startup, at the very least, minigun should combo into certain things it did not before. So that helps out. And Burn It Down, the satellite laser, has increased clash level, so it shouldn't clash with things anymore. So yeah, Goldlewis, very wait and see, honestly. Very wait and see. These changes could be huge, or they could be a wet fart. As a very admitted Goldlewis fan, especially because they're not addressing the issues with many of his hitboxes, I hope these changes are pretty big. Doubly so because the change to how Faultless Defense works and Guard Crush moves, Potemkin, he'll get around it pretty easy. Goldlewis, though, it hurts him a lot because he has no other recourse like Potemkin does with Karas and exceptionally long ranges and command grabs to threaten with and all that kind of stuff. So for Goldlewis's sake, I hope these are big. And finally, Jacko. So one of the big changes off the bat here, stand heavy slash. That's their weird cartwheel kick thing. Adjusted movement speed, and that's forward. They say specifically, it's so this happens less. Because stand S is a good poke. But, you know, Gatling being somewhat limited in this game, you can only go to certain buttons. If you want to go to stand heavy slash at the max range, you're just going to whiff and die. Like, this is not to your benefit. So this should actually be a bit of a natural combo now, which is great. Like many other characters, 6P buffed a bit, launches them up higher while making them go backwards less than it currently does. Lots of servant changes, some bug fixes, but stuff like throw servant. So you pick up your servant here, alright, and now you can only throw by diagonal down and forward versus forward and punch or whatever button you want to use. And this is the case for many of them. If you happen to be in the air, you can only activate the throw by diagonal down forward or up forward instead of regular forward. And this kind of applies for a lot of things. It's basically to help, you know, not accidentally toss a minion while you're doing other stuff, because holding forward, you do that a lot, right? So it's just to make things a little bit easier on you. So you're definitely holding the motion where you know you want to throw the guy versus like accidentally tapping forward and sending them off on their happy way. Same deal here when you do your servant release. Servant release cannot be done if you're hitting an upward direction. So no more accidental inputs on that. And so on and so forth. Attack, defend, all that kind of stuff. The inputs are changing just so you make sure you're doing the deliberate input versus accidentally doing something. It's just mostly quality of life changes. Servant shoot, that's the big boot. So Servant shoot expanded the upper hurt and hitbox, so it just hits up higher than it currently does, and you can also hit it from a little higher, and it can now be canceled into overdrives or super moves. So now you can do something like your boot into the big command grab super, which obviously in the current build is not possible. So it makes combo potential just immediately better. Speaking of the big command grab super, so it says you can now activate it even while you're holding a servant, which you definitely cannot do as it currently stands. You only throw them. So now you can do the super even while you're holding them. Increase the distance from which it can connect. So basically ranges it would whiff before, it will now hit. And adjusted the movement speed. I'm assuming it means it goes faster further. But one of the big things about it is you can just jump it on reaction. Like Potemkin Buster, this is not, right? But if you somehow adjusted the movement speed so it was not a jumpable command grab, that would be a very large quality of life benefit. We'll see, I guess, but I kind of doubt it. The wording just means I think it'll just travel further faster. So Jackal, a lot of quality of life stuff. She's obviously the newest character as of the current build, so I don't think they want to rock the boat too much. So that's the notes for the characters, and obviously when the patch comes out properly, we'll have the visual guide showing all the changes directly. Overall, I think this is a very strong patch. Yeah, there's some nerfs. Most of them are pretty universal and just lowering the overall damage in the game a little bit, which honestly, most people seem to be in favor of. I like the high damage personally, but yeah, lowering the damage a bit. It is mostly buffs, and just like the last patch, I think this ups the overall quality of the game. The game is much better for having this patch than not, especially when it comes to a lot of the aerial stuff. I think that's going to be opening up quite a bit. We'll have to wait and see to be sure. But I think it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to help a lot of characters out. Some characters I think are going to have whole new game plans, like Kai. Shock State Dragon Insult Kai might be a meat grinder chip kill character. That'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Millia's mix-up potential is going to be turbocharged, to say the least. And Axel might be one of the scariest characters now, thanks to his ability to full combo you while he's in the air. Like, random pokes be gone. He's going to get some real damage off every single aerial move if he hits you, so watch out. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see how all this plays out. I am super looking forward to it, and I hope you are too, because Guilty Gear Strive just keeps getting better, better, and better. And for now, my friends, that is the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. Go out and play some Guilty Gear.
Love, we